The shuttle Prometheus Dawn screamed through Kepler 442b's atmosphere like a falling star with anger management issues. Inside the cramped cockpit, Captain Jake Morrison gripped the controls with white knuckles, his jaw clenched tighter than a miser's purse. "Well, this is just fantastic," he muttered, watching the altitude readings plummet faster than his patience. 3 years of deep space travel, and now we are about to become the galaxy's most expensive crater. Lieutenant Lisa Park, strapped into the co-pilot's seat, managed a nervous laugh despite the violent shaking. "Look on the bright side, Cap. At least we will make history. First humans to crash land on an alien world. Your optimism is both inspiring and deeply concerning." Morrison shot back, wrestling with the failing navigation system. The instrument panel flickered like a disco ball having a seizure. Behind them, Dr. Marcus Webb clutched his geological survey equipment like a lifeline. The usually composed scientist looked about as comfortable as a vegetarian at a barbecue convention. "Perhaps we should consider emergency protocols," he suggested, his voice pitched higher than usual. "Emergency protocols?" Morrison barked out a laugh that bordered on hysteria. "Doc, we passed emergency protocols about 10 minutes ago. We are now firmly in the realm of prey to whatever deity accepts last-minute conversions." The shuttle bucked violently, throwing everyone against their restraints. Through the reinforced viewport, the alien landscape rushed up to meet them with alarming enthusiasm. Strange, twisted formations of what looked like metallic coral dotted the surface, gleaming with an unsettling, iridescent sheen. "Those formations," Webb gasped, pointing at the approaching ground. "They're not natural. Someone or something built those." Park squinted through the chaos. "Great. So we're not just crashing on an alien planet. We are crashing on an alien planet that's already occupied. This day just keeps getting better." Morrison's hands flew across the controls, trying every trick he'd learned in 20 years of piloting. "Everyone hold on. I'm going to try something that's either brilliant or the stupidest thing I have ever done." "Given our current situation," Park replied dryly, "I'm not sure there's much difference." The shuttle hit the atmosphere's lower layers with a bone-jarring thud. Morrison fired the remaining retro thrusters in a desperate gambit, the ship groaning under the stress like an old man getting out of bed. For a heart-stopping moment, it almost worked. Almost. They slammed into the alien soil with the grace of a drunken elephant, the shuttle carving a furrow through the strange, rust-colored earth for nearly 200 meters before finally grinding to a halt against a cluster of those metallic formations. Silence settled over the crash site like dust after an explosion. The only sounds were the groaning of cooling metal and the hiss of escaping atmosphere. Morrison slowly lifted his head, tasting blood from where he'd bitten his tongue. "Everyone's still breathing." "Define breathing," Park groaned, unbuckling her restraints with shaking hands. Webb was already reaching for his equipment, the scientist in him apparently immune to near-death experiences. "The atmospheric readings are unusual. Oxygen levels are actually higher than Earth normal. We can breathe without suits, though I'd recommend keeping them handy." "Wonderful," Morrison said, standing on unsteady legs. Nothing says successful first contact like showing up unannounced, uninvited, and unconscious. As they prepared to exit the shuttle, none of them noticed the subtle tremor that ran through the metallic formations around them, or the way the iridescent surfaces began to pulse with a soft, rhythmic light. But someone else did. High above, in a structure that defied human understanding of architecture, Commander Thane-Cole observed the crash through sensors that had been tracking the alien vessel since it entered their system. The commander's elongated form stood motionless before a wall of shifting displays, each one showing different aspects of the intruders. Fascinating. Thane-Cole's voice resonated through the chamber with harmonics that would have been impossible for human vocal cords. They survived impact. Their vessel's construction is crude, yet effective. Advisor Nimlex approached with the fluid grace characteristic of their species. "Should we initiate cleansing protocols? Their presence violates the sanctity of the preserve." Thane-Cole's head tilted, considering. The preserve had been undisturbed for 3,000 cycles, home to some of the galaxy's most delicate ecosystems. These creatures, whatever they were, represented an unprecedented contamination. Not yet, the commander decided. I wish to observe their behavior first. These beings interest me. They should have perished in that impact. Yet they walk about as if minor crashes are routine occurrences. On the surface, Morrison led his small team away from the wreckage, his military training kicking in despite the surreal circumstances. The air felt thick and somehow alive, carrying scents that had no earthly equivalent. Stay close, he instructed, checking his sidearm out of habit. We don't know what's out here, and I'd rather not find out the hard way. Park activated her scanner, the device immediately beginning to chatter with excited beeps. Jake, you need to see this. These formations aren't just artificial. They're actively processing the atmosphere, scrubbing pollutants, regulating oxygen levels. This is environmental engineering on a scale we can't even comprehend. Webb knelt beside one of the coral-like structures, his eyes wide with scientific fervor. The material composition is unlike anything in our periodic table. It's both organic and metallic, somehow achieving properties that should be mutually exclusive. Great, Morrison muttered. So we have crashed into someone's garden, and it's a garden that could probably terraform Mars in a weekend. That's when they heard it, a sound that made the hair on the back of their necks stand up. It wasn't quite music, wasn't quite speech, but something that seemed to bypass their ears and speak directly to their nervous systems. Park grabbed Morrison's arm. Please tell me that's just the wind. The sound came again, closer this time, and definitely not wind. It carried intelligence, purpose, and something that might have been curiosity. Well, Morrison said, chambering around his weapon with a soft click. I guess we were about to find out if universal translator protocols actually work, or if we were about to become the galaxy's first interspecies diplomatic incident. The three humans stood back to back as shapes began to emerge from the metallic formations around them. Tall, graceful figures that seemed to bend light around themselves, making it difficult to focus on their exact appearance. Remember, Morrison whispered, we are explorers, not conquerors. Let's try not to start an interstellar war on our first day. Park checked her recorder, making sure it was capturing everything. No pressure or anything. The alien figures moved with deliberate slowness, their movements creating subtle harmonies in the air around them. It was clear they were trying to appear non-threatening, which Morrison found both reassuring and deeply unsettling. They are studying us, Webb whispered in amazement, just like we're studying them. One of the figures stepped forward, and when it spoke, the words somehow made sense despite being in no human language. Welcome, travelers from the distant fire. We are the keepers of this place. You have brought great noise to our quiet world. Morrison stepped forward, his weapon lowered but ready. We didn't mean to intrude. Our ship malfunctioned. We are explorers from a world called Earth. The alien's head tilted in what might have been amusement. Earth. Yes, we know of your small blue world. You are the ones who sing to the void and fight among yourselves with such creative enthusiasm. Park blinked. They know about us. We know of many things, the alien replied. But we had not expected you to visit us so dramatically. Your species has a reputation for spectacular arrivals. Morrison felt a grin tugging at his lips despite the situation. Yeah, well, we like to make an impression. The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. Indeed, your impact crater will be visible from orbit for several cycles. Most impressive. As the initial tension began to ease, none of them noticed the subtle changes occurring around them. The metallic formations were responding to their presence, learning, adapting, and high above, Commander Thanecole watched with growing interest. Remarkable, the commander murmured. They show no fear. Even faced with the unknown, they maintain their composure and attempt communication. These humans may prove more interesting than anticipated, but not everyone was pleased with this development. In the shadows of the preserve, other eyes watched. Eyes that belonged to those who saw the human arrival not as an opportunity, but as a threat to be eliminated. The first contact was proceeding better than anyone had dared hope. But first contacts, as Morrison was about to learn, were often the easy part. It was everything that came after that tended to get complicated. Very, very complicated. 0.3 hours after the crash, everything went sideways faster than politicians promised during election season. Morrison was sharing Earth coffee with the lead keeper, a being who called himself Guide Tam, when the ground beneath them began to vibrate with a frequency that made their teeth ache. The metallic formations around the crash site suddenly blazed with warning lights that painted everything in harsh crimson shadows. "That's not good," Park observed with her usual talent for understatement, checking her readings. "Jake, we have got multiple contacts incoming." "Bust." Guide Tam's elongated form stiffened, harmonics in his voice shifting to something that sounded distinctly worried. "The Purifiers come. They do not share our curiosity about your species." "Purifiers?" Webb looked up from the alien technology he'd been examining. "That sounds ominous." "Your reputation precedes you, humans," Guide Tam explained, his tone growing urgent. "They know of your world's history. Your wars, your weapons, your tendency to turn peaceful situations into, what is your term? Cluster disasters." Morrison spat out his coffee. "Cluster what now?" A new sound cut through the air, something between a jet engine and an angry wasp the size of a building. 3 sleek vessels descended from the upper atmosphere, their hulls gleaming with the same iridescent material as the preserve formations, but somehow twisted into aggressive angles. "Oh, fantastic," Morrison muttered, watching the ships arrange themselves in attack formation. "We went from peaceful first contact to shooting war in record time. That might actually be a new personal best." The lead Purifier vessel broadcast a message that needed no translation. The intent was clear in every hostile harmonic. "Leave or die." Park hefted her rifle, checking the charge. "Well, Cap, looks like we are about to give them a demonstration of exactly why humans have that reputation." Guide Tam backed away from the humans, his species' natural grace giving way to something approaching panic. "You cannot fight them. Their technology is beyond your understanding." Morrison's grin was sharp enough to cut glass. "Yeah, that's what the last 5 species said." The first Purifier ship opened fire without further warning, energy beams slicing through the air where the humans had been standing moments before. But the crash survivors were already moving, their military training taking over with the smooth efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Morrison dove behind one of the metallic formations, the structure's surface rippling as it absorbed the incoming fire. "Doc, tell me these coral things are as tough as they look." Webb, pressed flat against another formation, was frantically scanning with his equipment. "They're not just tough, they are adaptive. The material is learning from each impact, becoming more resistant." "Wonderful," Park called out, laying down covering fire with her plasma rifle. "We are fighting in someone's living room, and the furniture is taking notes." Above them, Commander Thane Cole watched the engagement unfold with growing amazement. The humans weren't just surviving the Purifier assault, they were adapting to it. Each attack forced them to become more creative, more resourceful. "Impossible, bride et vie sur Nimlex." Their weapons are primitive compared to Purifier technology. "They should be vapor by now. Yet they persist," Thane Cole observed. "Notice how they use our formations for cover, while simultaneously studying them for weaknesses. They fight and learn simultaneously." The second Purifier ship descended, trying to catch the humans in a crossfire. Morrison saw it coming and did something that defied every tactical manual ever written. He ran directly toward the enemy. "Jake, what are you doing?" Park screamed. "Something stupid," he yelled back, leaping onto one of the taller formations. The living metal responded to his presence, tendrils erupting from its surface to provide handholds. Morrison scrambled up its length like a demented monkey, the Purifier ship tracking his movement. When he reached the top, Morrison did something that made every alien watching question the human sanity. He jumped, not down to safety, but up, directly at the Purifier vessel. For one impossible moment, he hung in the alien sky, suspended between gravity and death. Then his magnetic grappling hook, a piece of Earth technology so primitive it was almost insulting, clamped onto the ship's hull. The Purifier pilot's confusion was audible even through the language barrier. These creatures weren't supposed to be able to reach their ships. They weren't supposed to be crazy enough to try. Morrison hauled himself up the hull surface, his boots finding purchase on alien metal. He reached the ship's primary weapon array and did what humans did best when faced with advanced technology they didn't understand. He started hitting it with his rifle, but, "For the love of all that's holy," Park muttered, watching her captain essentially vandalize an alien spacecraft with brute force. That should not work. But it did. The weapon array sparked, stuttered, and died. The ship lurched sideways, its pilot struggling to compensate for the sudden system failure. Webb, meanwhile, had made a discovery that changed everything. The formations. They are not just defensive, they are connected to the ships. He pressed his hand against the nearest structure, feeling the vibrations running through its core. It's all one system. The preserve, the ships, everything. If we can disrupt the network, do it, Morrison commanded, still clinging to the crippled Purifier ship as it spun through the air. Webb pulled out his emergency charges, the small explosive devices meant for geological sampling. He placed them at key points along the formation's base, where the energy flows seemed strongest. "This is either going to save us," he announced, "or turn us into the galaxy's most spectacular fireworks display." The charges detonated simultaneously, sending shockwaves through the entire network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Every ship in the air suddenly lost power. Their connection to the preserve's energy grid severed. Morrison's hijacked vessel plummeted toward the ground, the captain still riding it like the world's most dangerous surfboard. At the last possible second, he activated his suit's emergency thrusters. Launching himself clear as the ship cratered into the alien soil, he hit the ground hard, rolled, and came up grinning despite the blood running down his face. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you negotiate with terrorists. The remaining Purifier ships crash-landed around them, their crews emerging with weapons drawn, but systems failing. They found themselves facing 3 humans who looked like they'd been through a blender, but were somehow still standing to guide. Tam approached cautiously, his harmonics conveying something like awe. "Your species continues to surprise us. The Purifiers have never been defeated by inferior technology." Morrison wiped blood from his split lip, his expression deadly serious. "That's because you're thinking about it wrong. It's not about having better technology. It's about being too stubborn to quit and too crazy to know when you are beaten." The lead Purifier, a being that looked like someone had tried to sculpt anger out of liquid mercury, stepped forward. When it spoke, the translation carried undertones of grudging respect. "You fight without honor, without proper weapons, without strategy." Park reloaded her rifle with practiced efficiency. "And yet here we stand, and there you lie in smoking wreckage. This is why your species is watched," the Purifier continued. "You make war from peace, victory from defeat. You should not exist, yet you thrive." Webb, ever the scientist, couldn't resist asking, "What do you mean we shouldn't exist?" Commander Thane Cole chose that moment to make an entrance, descending from above in a transport that whispered through the air like a ghost. The Keeper leader moved with the fluid grace of their species, but there was something different about their posture now, something that might have been respect. "Your species was expected to destroy itself centuries ago," Thane Cole explained, their harmonics carrying complex layers of meaning. "Your world is a death trap. Unstable climate, violent geology, predators that could kill beings twice your size. Yet you not only survived, you flourished." Morrison felt a strange pride swelling in his chest. "Yeah, well, Earth's a tough neighborhood. Makes you or breaks you. But it made you into something unprecedented," the commander continued. "A species that treats impossible odds as a minor inconvenience. That turns disasters into advantages. That sees a crashing spaceship and thinks, how can I weaponize this?" Park couldn't help but laugh. "You make us sound like galactic troublemakers. Are you not?" Guide Tam asked, gesturing at the smoking wreckage around them. "You arrived as explorers, became warriors, and somehow achieved peace, all in the span of 4 hours. The Purifier leader made a sound that might have been bitter laughter. This is why some fear your expansion into the galaxy. Your species doesn't just adapt to new environments. You remake them to suit your needs. And others, Thane Cole added, see opportunity. A species that can turn any situation to their advantage, that refuses to accept defeat, that finds solutions where others see only problems. Morrison looked around at his small team, battered but unbroken, then at the alien beings surrounding them. The crash site that had been a disaster was now something else entirely. A meeting ground, a place where different species had learned about each other in the most direct way possible. So what happens now? He asked. Thane Cole's harmonics shifted to something that sounded almost like amusement. Now we begin the real negotiations. Because if your species is going to expand into the galaxy, we need to establish some ground rules. Ground rules? Webb asked. Simple ones, the commander explained. Try not to crash into any more preserves. Try not to hijack any more ships. And perhaps, just perhaps, consider announcing yourselves before staging dramatic crash landings. Morrison's grin was infectious. Where's the fun in that? As the alien sun set over Kepler, 442b, painting the metallic formations in shades of gold and crimson, the first successful human first contact came to an end. It hadn't gone according to any protocol ever written, but then again, humans had never been much for following protocols. The shuttle Prometheus Dawn might have been a write-off, but the mission was anything but a failure. They'd made contact, survived their first interstellar diplomatic incident, and somehow managed to earn the respect of beings who could have reduced them to atoms without breaking a sweat. You know, Park said, watching the alien crews work together to salvage their crashed ships, this might actually be the start of something incredible. Morrison nodded, already planning their next move. Because that's what humans did. They planned, they adapted, and they never, ever knew when to quit. In the end, that might just be humanity's greatest strength. Not their technology, not their weapons, but their absolute refusal to accept that anything was impossible. After all, they were the species that had looked at the vacuum of space and decided it needed conquering. The aliens were about to discover that when humans said they were explorers, they meant it in the most comprehensive, stubborn, and slightly unhinged way possible. The galaxy would never be the same. But the real surprises were just beginning. 2 days later, Morrison stood in what the aliens called a confluence chamber, a massive space that defied human understanding of architecture. The walls curved impossibly, seeming to exist in more dimensions than the standard 3. Representatives from a dozen species had gathered, all drawn by news of the human arrival. This is unprecedented, muttered Dr. Webb, his scientific brain struggling to process the alien geometries around them. The mathematics alone should make this structure collapse. Yeah, well, add it to the list of things that shouldn't work, but do anyway, Morrison replied, adjusting his dress uniform. After 2 days of hasty repairs and diplomatic preparation, they looked almost respectable. Almost. Lieutenant Park stood at attention beside them, her recorder capturing everything. 12 species, Jake. 12 different civilizations, all here because 3 humans crashed a shuttle and refused to die quietly. The chamber's acoustics were perfect, designed to carry every sound to every listener regardless of their species' hearing range. When the formal proceedings began, Morrison felt like he was standing at the center of the universe. Guide Tam approached first, his harmonics carrying ceremonial overtones. Honored guests from the third world of Sol, we present the galactic consensus. Today, we determine humanity's place among the star-traveling peoples. A new voice cut through the chamber, harsh and mechanical. If they deserve a place at all. Morrison turned to see something that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts of a dozen different machines. The being moved with precise, calculated steps, each motion perfectly efficient. Let me guess, Morrison said dryly. You are not here to welcome us to the neighborhood. I am Construct Prime of the Efficiency Collective, the mechanical being announced. Your species represents chaos incarnate. You solve problems through violence and stubbornness rather than logic and calculation. Park couldn't help herself. How's that working out for you so far? The construct's optical sensors focused on her with laser precision. Explain. Well, you're all here because we crash-landed on a preserve, fought off the Purifiers with primitive weapons, and somehow convinced everyone that humans are worth talking to. If that's not efficiency, I don't know what is. A sound that might have been laughter came from across the chamber. The source was a being that looked like someone had tried to build a bear out of living shadow. The small human speaks truth, metal friend. Sometimes the direct path is the efficient path. Shadow Walker Grix speaks wisdom, agreed another voice. This one belonged to something that resembled a walking tree. If trees had personalities and attitude problems, the humans demonstrate practical solutions to complex problems. Construct Prime's sensors word as they process this input. Their methods lack elegance, lack planning. They succeeded through pure chance. Do we, though? Morrison stepped forward, his tone conversational, but his eyes sharp. 3 humans stranded on an alien world, facing technology centuries ahead of our own. We didn't just survive. We won. You want to call that luck? Statistics suggest the construct began. Statistics suggested we should have died in the crash. Webb interrupted, his scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic protocol. They suggested we should have been vaporized by the Purifiers. They suggested a lot of things that didn't happen. Commander Thankol moved to the center of the chamber, their presence commanding immediate attention. This is why we are here. Not to judge human methods, but to understand them. Your species has achieved something we thought impossible, which is, Morrison asked, "You have made unpredictability into a weapon," replied a new voice. The speaker emerged from what Morrison could have sworn was empty air, a being that seemed to exist in a state of constant flux, shifting between forms like liquid mercury with artistic ambitions. "I am Flow State Ren of the Adaptation Collective." The being continued, their form stabilizing into something vaguely humanoid. "We have studied your species for 3 cycles. Your ability to adapt, to find solutions where none should exist, fascinates us." Park raised an eyebrow. "You have been watching us?" "Many have," Thane Cole admitted. "Your world broadcasts its activities across the electromagnetic spectrum. Your entertainment alone provides endless study material." "Oh, great," Morrison muttered. "They have been watching our movies. Your historical documents are particularly instructive." Shadow Walker Grix rumbled with apparent amusement. "The one called Die Hard has become required study material for several military academies." Webb blinked. "You are studying human tactics from action movies?" "The protagonist demonstrates classic human problem-solving," Flow Staterin explained, their form rippling with what might have been excitement. "Isolated, outgunned, fascine impossible." Yet he adapts, improvises, and ultimately prevails through determination and creative use of available resources. "That's actually not wrong," Park admitted grudgingly. Construct Prime's optical array focused on Morrison with mechanical intensity. "Your species treats warfare as entertainment. This suggests a fundamental psychological abnormality." Morrison's grin was sharp enough to cut steel. "Or it suggests we're so good at warfare that we have turned it into an art form. Your choice how you want to interpret that." The mechanical being processed this for several long seconds. "Clarification required. You are threatening us." "Nope. Just pointing out that humans don't start fights. We finish them." The chamber fell silent except for the subtle harmonics of various species' breathing apparatus. Then Shadow Walker Grix made that sound again, the one that might have been laughter. "This is why some fear your expansion, humans. You speak of peace while demonstrating war. You offer friendship while displaying strength. It's called deterrence," Morrison explained patiently. "We'd rather be friends. But if you want to be enemies, we are prepared for that too." "Fascinating," Flow State Rin murmured, their form shifting to mirror Morrison's posture. "You negotiate from a position of assumed equality despite being outnumbered by species possessing superior technology." Superior technology didn't help the Purifiers much. Park pointed out helpfully. Gaitam's harmonics carried what sounded like diplomatic concern. "The consensus must determine if humanity represents opportunity or threat. Your methods are unconventional. Unconventional how? Webb asked, the tree-like being rustled, its bark-covered limbs. Most species achieve spaceflight through gradual technological development over millennia. They make contact carefully, following established protocols. They integrate slowly into galactic society. And humans? Morrison prompted. Humans achieve spaceflight in centuries rather than millennia. Make contact by crashing into restricted preserves. Integrate by forcing the galaxy to acknowledge them. So basically, Park said with a straight face, we skipped the boring parts. Commander Thanecole's harmonics shifted to something that definitely sounded like amusement. That is one way to describe it. Construct Prime's sensors word again. Query. What are human intentions regarding galactic expansion? Morrison considered the question seriously. Honestly, we want to explore, learn, find new places to call home, maybe trade some technology, share some ideas. The usual stuff. And if others oppose this expansion? Morrison's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Then they will discover why Earth is the only planet in our system that supports complex life, despite having the most dangerous ecosystem in the local cluster. Elaborate, demanded the construct. Earth tried to kill us for millions of years. Webb explained, his scientific enthusiasm evident. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, predators that could swallow us whole. We didn't just survive. We thrived. We turned every obstacle into an advantage. The Ice Age taught us cooperation and planning, Park added. The volcanoes taught us to adapt quickly. The predators taught us to be clever, to use tools, to work together. And the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. Morrison's smile was razor thin. That taught us that sometimes you have to be willing to bet everything on a single throw of the dice. Flow state Ren's form rippled with what might have been excitement. You are saying that humanity's greatest strength is its ability to turn catastrophe into opportunity. We are saying, Morrison replied, that catastrophe is just another word for Tuesday where we come from. The chamber erupted into what could generously be called discussion, but sounded more like controlled chaos. Different species debated in their various languages, harmonics overlapping with mechanical whirring and organic rustling. Finally, Commander Thanecole called for order. The consensus has reached a preliminary decision. Morrison felt his team tense beside him. This was it, the moment that would determine humanity's future among the stars. Humanity will be granted provisional membership in the galactic community, Thanecole announced. However, certain conditions apply, such as, Morrison asked carefully, first, you will accept monitoring of your expansion activities. Second, you will participate in established diplomatic protocols for future contact situations. Third, you will provide advance warning before visiting any more preserves. Morrison pretended to consider this seriously. And in exchange, access to galactic trade networks, technological exchanges, and mutual defense agreements. Mutual defense. Park asked as Shadowwalker Grix's rumbling laugh filled the chamber. Did you think you were the only species in the galaxy with enemies, humans? There are things in the void between stars that make your Purifier friends look like friendly neighbors. Webb's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity. What kind of things? The kind, Flow State Ren said, their form darkening ominously, that consider entire civilizations to be nothing more than interesting snacks. Morrison felt that familiar sensation, the one he'd learned to recognize as opportunity disguised as crisis. Well then, I guess it's a good thing you found yourself some humans. Explain, Construct Prime demanded. Simple, Morrison replied, his grin returning. You have got ancient enemies with superior technology and the hunger to devour civilizations. We have got a species that specializes in punching above our weight class and turning impossible odds into Tuesday afternoon entertainment. You are suggesting an alliance? Thanecole asked. I'm suggesting, Morrison said, that the galaxy just got a lot more interesting. And if there's one thing humans are good at, it's making interesting situations turn out in our favor. As the confluence chamber erupted into excited discussion once again, Morrison caught Park's eye and winked. They'd come to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations. They'd found them. All right. And now, whether the galaxy was ready or not, humanity was about to show them exactly what it meant to be the species that had looked at a universe full of dangers and decided it needed some company. The real adventure was just beginning.